Section 59 of Narratives of Colored Americans. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Narratives of Colored Americans by Abigail Mott and M.S. Wood. Anthony Benezet died on the 3rd of 5th month, 1784, Anthony Benezet, aged 71 years, a member of the Society of Friends. It was a day of sorrow. The afflicted widow, the unprotected orphan, and the poor of all descriptions had lost the sympathetic mind of Benezet. Society lamented the extinguishment of the brilliant light of his philanthropy. The wandering tribes in the American wilderness and the oppressed Africans were indeed bereft, for his willing pen and tongue had ceased forever to portray the history of their injuries, or plead for the establishment of their rights before the sons of men. At the interment of his remains in Friends' burial ground in Philadelphia was the greatest concourse of people that had ever been witnessed on such an occasion, being a collection of all ranks and professions among the inhabitants, thus manifesting the universal esteem in which he was held. Among others who paid that last tribute of respect were many hundred colored people, testifying by their attendance and by their tears the grateful sense they entertained of his pious efforts in their behalf. Having no children, by his will he bequeathed his estate to his wife during her natural life. At her decease he directed several small sums to be paid to poor and obscure persons. The residue he devised in trust to the overseers of the public school, to hire and employ a religious-minded person or persons to teach a number of Negro, mulatto, or Indian children to read, write, arithmetic, plain accounts, needlework, etc. And it is my particular desire, founded on the experience I have had in that service, that, in the choice of such tutor, special care may be taken to prefer an industrious, careful person of true piety, who may be or become suitably qualified, who would undertake the service from a principle of charity, to one more highly learned, not equally disposed. He also bequeathed, as a special legacy, the sum of £50 to the Society in Pennsylvania for the promotion of the abolition of slavery. Thus closed the life of this great and good man. Dispensing his blessings with his own hand, he was too liberal to be a man of wealth. He was a native of France, and in the ancient records of his family are exhibited evidences of religious character in his predecessors. Connected with the demise of his grandfather, the event is said to be to the great affliction of his children and the universal regret of his relatives and friends, for he was a model of virtue and purity, and lived in the constant fear of God. Attached to the birth note of his grandson Anthony are these expressions: "May God bless him in making him a partaker of his mercies." Though virtue is not hereditary, it must be admitted that example is powerful. Among the productions of Anthony Benezet's pen was An Historical Account of Guinea, its situation, produce, and the general disposition of its inhabitants, with an inquiry into the rise and progress of the slave trade, its nature and calamitous effects. Note from the Memoirs of A. Benezet. The influence of this work in giving an impulse to the mind of the indefatigable and benevolent Thomas Clarkson, whose exertions contributed so much to bringing about the abolition of the slave trade by the British Parliament, is certainly remarkable. In the year 1785, Dr. Peckard, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cambridge, proposed to the senior bachelors of arts, of whom Clarkson was one, the following question for a Latin dissertation, viz., in English, Is it right to make slaves of others against their will? Having in the former year gained a prize for the best Latin dissertation, he resolved to maintain the classical reputation he had acquired by applying himself to the subject. But it was one with which he was by no means familiar, and he was at a loss what authors to consult respecting it, when going by accident, he says, into a friend's house, I took up a newspaper then lying on the table. One of the articles which attracted my notice was an advertisement of Anthony Benezet's historical account of Guinea. I soon left my friend and his paper and, to lose no time, hastened to London to buy it. In this precious book I found almost all I wanted. The information furnished by Benezet's book encouraged him to complete his essay, which was rewarded with the first prize. And from that moment Clarkson's mind became interested with the great subject of the abolition. End of section 59.